only reach heaven if we receive the true faith. And it has to come through the Pope as the highest pastor of the church. In a sense, the Pope must have this virtue of faith in the strongest, most possible way. He must be the first who believes, so that he can strengthen his brethren, which is in a sense his most holy obligation. And this virtue is so necessary for the head of the church. And this we must understand, particularly in our own day. For the church, what is the church? The church is a society, the union of all the faithful in one body. That's why we call it the church, ecclesia, the mystical body, but under one head. And hence her members must be unified, both among themselves and with the head. And in relation to this, something else must be noted. Those Catholics who resist these changes of Vatican II, they're always accused of so many splits, so many divisions, and no one can get along with each other, which is in a sense true. However, one thing has to be very clear, that in essence, all the traditional Catholics who deny the validity of the Second Vatican II papacy, so to speak, are unified essentially in three things. That is doctrine. They hold essentially to all the doctrines taught until the beginning of the Second Vatican Council. In essence, they are unified in the true liturgy of the church. And in truth, they are also unified by holding firmly to the universal laws of the church. Very important. They have true unity. They might fight with each other about other issues, but in essence, they are truly unified. Since, what is it that ties the members of the church together? It is nothing else than faith, true doctrine, next to true worship and to true discipline. But foremost, supernatural faith. Every single article of our faith. And hence they are called the faithful. Therefore, it follows that the supreme head of the church must be preeminent in this virtue of faith, on which chiefly depends the stability and the common and universal good of the church. And when the man who is dressed in a white cassock doesn't have the virtue of faith, how can he strengthen the Catholics, his brethren, in the faith? It is impossible. In fact, in the case of the Vatican II popes in quotation marks, they are not strengthened the brethren. They are weakening them and scandalizing them. That's why they're not true popes. And this is why Francis is, nor could he ever be, a true pope, because he doesn't have the faith. I also remember in the case of Francis, it is very, very apparent. Because we are not talking in the case of Francis only about heresies. We're talking about very particular forms of apostasy and blasphemous actions almost every day. So many times has he opened his mouth and blasphemed our Lord, blasphemed Our Lady, blasphemed some mysteries of our holy faith. Such a man cannot be Pope, cannot be Vicar of Christ. It is totally impossible. And when we think of St. Peter, we have to say he distinguished himself above all the other apostles by his strong and lively faith. Let us look at this particular faith of St. Peter. And here we don't talk about St. Peter's faith, which were common to all the other apostles, but only the faith which were particular to him alone. And this peculiar faith of St. Peter, and which suffices to convince us that he surpassed all the other apostles in this faith, is his most solemn profession of faith, which he first and alone of all the apostles made in the Godhead, in the divine nature of our Lord Jesus Christ. You might remember our Lord arriving at the region of Caesarea Philippi. The Gospel tells us our Lord asked them, "What do these people think I am?" And now our Lord receives answers. Some hold you as the prophet Elias. Some hold you as Jeremiah. Some think you're just another prophet. And having received these various answers, he seemed not satisfied with them at all. And now he addressing the apostles directly, asking them, "Whom do you say that I am?" And thus he wished to give them an opportunity of professing their faith in him. But Peter alone now, stepping forward, and spoke the memorable words, "Thou art Christ, the Son of the living God." Thou art Christ, the Son of the living God. And if that is true, and is true, what St. Peter said, "Thou art Christ, the Son of the living God." If that is true, this one Son of God founded but one church, the Catholic Church, how can the popes, the so-called popes of the Second Vatican Council, Paul VI, John Paul II, Ratzinger, Francis, and so forth, how can they go to a mosque or into a synagogue, take active part in such a service, which the old moral theologians call it not apostasy, but a sign that you have apostatized from your faith. It is a manifestation of your own apostasy if you take part in such a service. It is impossible to believe in our Lord as the Son of God at the same time taking active part in such a service seen before the entire